already disappointed because you don't see my son Elijah up here. I get it. He's an amazing speaker. I'm super proud of him. But we decided that because he got sick, it probably wouldn't be great to have him try and come up here and get through that. Thankfully, he's feeling better. But for those of you who are worried about a run out the door going, no, don't worry. It's not COVID. Believe it or not, there are other sicknesses in existence. I know it's hard to believe. Most everything now is just COVID, but he's getting better, and so he will be here next week. For those of you that were looking forward to hearing him, he and I got to hear some of the message that God's put on his heart. It's so good. So he'll be here next Sunday. Right now, though, you and I get to kick off this brand new series on our first service of the new year, called Breaking Ground. You heard Judy talking about it, but a lot of times we want to see God breaking ground around us. He's got to break ground within us first. And I just want to, as I was not expecting to preach this weekend and found out last minute, that Elijah was feeling sick, I sat down to the Lord and I said, God, hello, I need a word for our church. And God gave me a word for you, and I really believe that this is something that he wants us to hear. But it's easy to enter into this new year with a bit of cynicism, right? I don't know about you, but I love memes, and memes help me get through the insanity of life. And I love this one right here. The moment that you realize 2022 is pronounced 2022, right? Immediately you're like, oh no, I didn't know 2020 was a trilogy. I didn't know that. No one told me that. And how is it that we can enter into this new year thinking it's not just going to be a repeat of the last 2 years, right? And as we're setting our goals for the new year and accomplishing goals of 2020, which should have been done in 2020, but instead I promised them in 2019, and I planned them all the way back in 2018, and it's super easy to just get frustrated and think that I'm never going, like this next picture, I'm never going to actually change anything, that it's all just going to be the same as what it is that we've experienced years before. Like those of us that said, I'm going to eat better in the new year. Well, and then the new year was on Saturday. That's the holiday. So I'm going to eat better on Sunday, but it's still the weekend. I'm going to eat better on Monday, but I still got all these Christmas snacks. So I'll eat better in February, and by March we don't even remember what it is that we said we were going to do back on the 31st. It gets super easy to get frustrated, to think that life is just going to continue to be the same as it was in the past years. But I want to ask that you would receive, even in the middle of the laughing at ourselves and the cynicism and all of that stuff, that God wants to give you a vision for fruitfulness. That is, as I prayed over this church over the last couple of months, I prayed over the church, not just this one. I really felt God speaking that word. And you guys remember me sharing this with you, but it came out of Luke 13, 6 through 9. If you want to follow along, we've got paper notes on the tables around you, or you can grab your free Father's House app and follow along on your digital notes. But it says this at the top of your notes in Luke 13, 6 to 9. Jesus told this parable. A man owned a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it, and he found none. And he said to his gardener, look, I've come looking for fruit on this fig tree for the past 3 years, and I've never found any past 3 years. Isn't that interesting? I haven't found any, so cut it down. I'm done with this thing. Why should it continue depleting the soil's nutrients? It's just taking up space. The gardener responded, Lord, give it 1 more year, and I'll dig around it, I'll give it fertilizer, and maybe it will produce fruit next year. If not, then you can cut it down. And as God just spoke to me so strongly, he said, give it 1 more year. And he had me share that with you at our anniversary service. Give it 1 more year. And I've heard that word just resounding as I've had conversations with many of you, that was a word that you needed, because there's so many things in our heart and our life that are saying, I'm done. At 3 years of this, I can't handle this anymore. I'm done. And you can hear the gardener's voice as God's voice saying, no. I'm going to give you a vision for fruitfulness in a land of barrenness. God wants to speak that over every relationship in your life, every circumstance in your life, all the financial challenges that you're facing right now, the places where you're looking to be free, but you just can't seem to get there. God is giving you a vision for fruitfulness. And every place of frustration, just like in the parable where the guy's like, I've been going to this thing for 3 years and nothing. Why would I want to give it any more time? And the Lord is saying, give it one more year. You and I are going to work on this thing together. And this time next year, we're going to see fruit that we never thought would come. That we would never seen come if we cut this thing down, if we gave up, if we gave in, if we simply cut out. And the Lord is saying, I want to give that to you. And there's 3 things out of a verse in Hosea 10:12 that God gave me that I want to share with you. That's our way to get a vision for fruitfulness in a land of barrenness. And the first is this: prioritizing intentionality. Prioritize intentionality. In fact, my son, Aiden, is such a good example of this. In fact, so much so that he even has a really awesome tattoo. Just got this tattooed on his arm, intentional. And that word it's saying it's not just going to happen naturally, it's going to happen intentionally. It's going to happen because it's something that I plan towards, it's something that I work towards, it's something that I move towards. It's not that I'm not just going to go with the flow and see what happens. No, this gardener said, I've got to work on this thing. I've got to dig deep. I've got to bring in extra nutrients in order to see fruit come. Prioritize intentionality. What's first determines what's next. I'm so glad that you and those joining us online have said, I'm going to put God first in this new year. You said, I'm going to be here to worship. I'm going to seek the Lord with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. I'm going to put Him first in everything. And here's the deal, is that what's first determines what's next. So you guys are already on a good foot. You're already saying, I'm putting God first. First of the year. I'm going to prioritize intentionality. And it takes intentionality just to get to church, doesn't it? I mean, especially if you've got kids. It takes a lot just to get here. So congratulations. You made it. You made it this far, and God has a word for you. Where we see in the Israelites in Hosea chapter 10 is that they were reaping a harvest of judgment. They say, we are going to reap a harvest. And so it could be one of righteousness or of judgment, and it all depends on what's first. They put themselves first. They experienced an abundant blessing from God, and they decided to say, this is because of us, not because of our God. They turned their backs on God, and you see this pattern going over and over again. So he raises up our prophet Hosea, and in the middle of him saying, here's why you guys are coming under judgment, because you're going to reap what you sow. You sowed this pride and arrogance and bitterness, and now you're going to reap a harvest of it. But in the middle of that reality, he was giving them a reality check. In the middle of the reality, here's God's heart. He's saying, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And he says this, in the first part of verse 12, Hosea 10. I said, plant the good seeds of righteousness in contrast to self-righteousness. And you will harvest a crop of what? Love. How many of us would like to harvest a crop of love in 2022 and 2023? Oh, please understand. What we are going to reap this year is what we planted last year. What we're about to step into is a harvest of what we were planting last year. I know some of us are like, oh. So I just want to speak into that Hosea's word. If a lot of what you planted this past year in 21 isn't something that you want to see growing and flourishing in your life, then Hosea's word is for you. He's saying, in the middle of that deserved judgment, God is saying, but I can turn this thing around if you'll put me first. Put me first again. What's first determines what's next. Matthew 6:33-34, Jesus said it this way, but seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. How wonderful would it be to plant righteousness instead of worry this year? Yes. How wonderful would it be to plant trust instead of fear? And it all has to do with priority. Prioritizing intentionality. How do we put Him first? I came across this amazing teaching, and you guys might be familiar with it because I usually share it around this time of year, every year. If not for anybody else, it's for me. It's kind of a ratcheting back, a reordering, a reprioritizing of my life to actually ask God, am I on track? Are you actually first in my life? If what's first determines what's next, how can I make sure God is actually first in all the main areas in my life? And so I would like to use this illustration because I'm a picture guy. And let's just say this jar represents you and I. We are all the same. In that we all only have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. None of us have any more or any less. So we are finite in our capacity. Our God is infinite, but we are finite. We only have so much that we can fit in with our time. All of us have the same amount of time. All of us have the same amount of challenges. And the truth is that 80% of what we do, the sitting in traffic, the answering of emails, the watching of ridiculous Netflix shows that we swore we would not watch and we're still watching anyways. That is about 80% of our life is filled with those things. Updates, social media, lunches, games, all of that kind of stuff. Okay? 80% of what we do, anybody can do. Okay? Then we have 15% of what we do that someone with a measure of training could do. So for instance, it's probably your occupation, probably what you get paid for. Most of us are doing something that someone trained us to do, and so 15% of what we do, someone could do if they got trained and went through the same training we did. But there's 5% left that only you and I are uniquely designed by God to do. We cannot delegate it to anyone else. 80%, anyone can do. 15%, someone with some training could probably take our spot. But there's 5%. That's what I call our big rocks. So, one of my big rocks, of course, is my wife, Cindy. No, I can't delegate care for my wife to someone else. That just doesn't work out very well. It's my job to make sure she is fulfilled in her calling, that she is cared for, that she knows that she is loved. And I can't delegate that to anybody else. For my boys, got 5 boys, one of the greatest privileges of my life. They have a lot of people speaking into their life, which is why I'm so thankful to belong to the local church. But I can't delegate my boys and the care of them, their calling, to anybody else. That's a part of my 5% that I am uniquely designed and called to do. My vocation, the difference between occupation and vocation, at least as far as I see it, is this. This occupation is what you get paid for. Vocation is what you're made for. So you can get paid to do all kinds of stuff, but you're specifically called to do a few things. There's a lot of stuff that I do that someone else could do here at the church. But there's 5% of what I do as the lead pastor, the privilege that God's given me, that if I delegate that to someone else, if I delegate the vision and the praying and the calling, if I delegate that leadership to someone else, then I am denying what it is that God's asked me to do. So I've got to make sure that's in there. Then, of course, self-care. Man, I wish I could delegate this to someone else. That I could eat my Christmas cheese, but I would get the benefit of your crunches. Wouldn't that be awesome? Like, you do the working out. Okay, can I just delegate the fasting to you? And then I get the spiritual benefit? No, it doesn't work that way. I'm the only one that can decide, hey, John, your pants are too tight and that's your fault. I can't delegate that to you. I can't make that your fault. I've got to take responsibility for that. And you guys can already see the problem here. We've got 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and there's already not enough room for my 5%. But is there something missing even in this? Of course there is. It's the God rock. The foundation, right? I mean, we're Christians. We say that our life is completely dependent upon Him. We sing songs about it. But when we look at the reality of our life, there's no room for the most important person in our lives. I can't delegate seeking the Lord to you. I can't delegate journaling, taking this life journal and reading my daily reading so that I can hear what God's saying through His Word. I can't delegate that to you. You can't do this for me. I can't seek the Lord. I can't repent when He convicts me. I can't have you repent for me and He convicts me of my sin. I can just say, God, it's their fault. No, it doesn't work. I can't delegate that to anybody else. And so you see, inherent is the problem is that no matter how many resolutions we come up with, we usually by March end up in this exact same scenario. We've got 80% filling our time that anybody can do. 15% filling our time that someone with some training could do. But the 5% that you and I are uniquely called to do and what I believe we will one day be accountable for the throne of grace for, don't have time for. Most importantly, the one who can actually help us do the rest of this stuff, he usually gets short shrift. He usually is the one we say, I'll read the Bible later. I'll pray later. I'll wait till Sunday. Listen, if you're delegating your spiritual growth to me as your pastor, it's not going to work. I can't do that for you. What I'm here is to come and encourage and celebrate and equip you to make sure that you're putting your God rock first. What's first determines what's next. So, what if we start over? What if we do it differently this year? What's first determines what's next, and God, putting you first. Not as a resolution, but as my very living and breathing and having my being reality. Not as some religious obligation, but as an invitation to relationship. God, I'm going to put my calling, my church, into your hands. God's going to help me with self-care so that when I want to eat a piece of cake, the Lord is going to help me say, no, John, you don't need that. Right? The Lord is going to help me in caring for my boys as they're getting older, making really important decisions that are going to affect the rest of their life. I've never done this before. And God, if He's the foundation for it, He's going to help me do it. He's going to help me parent my boys. Speak life into them. God's going to help me make sure that my wife is fulfilled in her calling. That this year I'm speaking into her life. That I'm finding out how I can serve what it is that God's uniquely designed her to do. God's going to help me to do that because He is first. And then with all the 15% of my occupation, right, the stuff that I get paid for, guess who's going to help me do that? God is, because what's first determines what's next. I still got to show up to work. I know it's hard to say that, but we still have to show up to work tomorrow, you guys. It's still going to be required that we clock in and we clock out, but now it's different because now I'm not just showing up to work for me. I'm showing up to work with God. He is the foundation for everything that I do. At work, where I wake, and where I worship. And then ultimately that leaves... Yeah, there's still, there's still going to be that next Netflix show that you want to check out. There's still going to be, that traffic that you're going to be sitting in. But at least it's not taking up the space that should be reserved for God and God alone. And you and I can live this way, where God is the foundation for everything. And He helps us with our 5%. And He is with us when we are going to work. And no matter how much we don't want to, God is with us, and He's going to help us to do it as unto Him. And then the rest of the stuff, it's just filling in the cracks. It no longer determines our time. And it's so simple when we put God first. It's an opportunity for you and I today to say, yeah, I'm going to live this one differently. I'm going to put God first in my life. So our community builder discussion question is, what's your 5%? Write it down. No, I really want you to. I'm not going to check and make sure you do, but it helps if you write it down. And then share it with your 5%. Share it with your spouse. Share it with your kids. Go out on a date and say, hey, are we in line with what it is that God's asked us to do as a couple, as a family, as members of a church? Do we have our 5% in place? The things that you're uniquely designed to do. Quit letting everything else crowd out your calling. What's first determines what's next. So let's put Him first. God wants to give you a vision for fruitfulness, and it starts with making sure He's the foundation for everything that you do. Secondly, prioritizing immediacy. Your root determines your fruit. When's the best time to plant a seed? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Right now. Don't put it off. Let's not procrastinate until Monday or February. Let's put God first right now, because our root determines our fruit. You can see that again in that prophetic word, Isaiah 10 verse 12, plow up the ground of your hearts, for now is the time to seek the Lord. He doesn't say tomorrow is the time to seek the Lord. He doesn't start saying, next week when you have a little extra time, go ahead and start working on the soil of your soul. No, he says now is the time. Why does he say that? Because you and I, when it comes to hard work, we don't want to do it. You know what else we don't want to do? Heart work. We would rather have someone else do it. Can I delegate that to someone else? The fasting and the praying and the seeking of God and all of that kind of stuff. Can I read a manual? Can I just plug and play and just have me immediately closer to God? No, it doesn't work that way. God is saying it's up to you to plow the hardened soil of your soul. And let's just be honest, with circumstances the way they've been for the last couple of years, if you aren't dealing with some hardness, I want to learn from you. Because God is constantly revealing places in my own heart and life where I become a little hard. I become a little cold in my life. A little calculated in how I care. And those are those places that God is saying, if you work on that now, the root will be able to go deep in me and you will bear much fruit. Because it doesn't matter how much potential a seed has. If that ground is hard, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to develop anything. No roots will be able to grow. Prayer and fasting is one of the ways that we do that. And remember that story in Matthew 17? This dad asked his disciples to cast out this demon that's been torturing his son, and they can't do it. Jesus comes, casts the demon out. They have a little kind of a small group session on the side afterwards. And the disciples say to Jesus privately, verse 19, why could we not cast it out? I'm so glad we have this kind of relationship with Jesus where we can ask him those questions. God, we were there. I know that you gave us authority in Mark 3, 14 through 15. He gave us the authority to cast out demons. What's going on here? You did it. That demon was fleeing. It was running. We prayed. Nothing happened. I'm so glad they asked that question. And Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief, for assuredly I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, that's a tiny little seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it'll move, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. All we need is a mustard seed of faith, and you know what? You already have that, or you wouldn't be here. You already have a mustard seed of faith. Everything you need to move a mountain, but the moving of that soil also requires prayer and fasting. This was a demonic presence in this boy's life for, as far as we can tell from Scripture, his entire life. There are some deeply rooted things in our life that if we want to get rid of them, some hardened ground, it's going to take prayer and fasting. It's going to take seeking God. Now, please understand, prayer and fasting doesn't talk God into anything. We've already been given the authority through his name. It's actually just aligning our heart with his. Prayer and fasting is a expression of a dependency upon God, where we're setting aside, whether it's food or entertainment, or whatever it's sweets, whatever it is that God would lead you to fast. It's setting those things aside so that we can express to God our complete dependency upon him in the place of that meal or that time you would normally sit on the couch and watch your show. God is saying, God, I'm putting that stuff aside so I can make sure you are first. And you know what? We're going to start seeing demons running again. How many of us want to see demons running again, right? They've been way too comfortable as far as I'm concerned. They've enjoyed themselves, and we have been giving them way too much room, and it's time to give those demons the boot by putting God first in prayer and fasting. In fact, Hebrews 12:15, it's not here on the screen, but It says, see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. It's not just about the soil of our soul. It's also about what we're planting. And some of us have been rooted in bitterness and unforgiveness. And we're reaping that. And just like that boy, that demon in that boy's life, everyone can smell it. Like, the church it's been revealed that we've been kind of rooting ourselves in lots of other things besides our God. And he's saying, I want you to do this now. Your root determines your fruit. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but it was around Halloween at the San Diego Botanical Gardens. Hundreds of people lined up to come watch this fruit from this plant come, and it's called the corpse plant for good reason. You guys hear about this? It's aptly named because its beautiful bloom brings the smell of, get this, rotting flesh. Wow. And appropriately, the timing was amazing because it started blooming on Halloween, right? That day where everyone celebrates death. And so people were driving all over, waiting in line, paying lots of money to come see this. And as described by the horticultural manager, he described it this way. On Sunday night, the plant's odor grew strong and more toxic smelling. And I don't understand. It's burning people's eyes. It's giving them sore throats, a metallic taste in their mouth. This chemical reaction starts out smelling like a good French cheese, according to this guy. Stinky but delightful. I don't get it. Then it moves to adolescent boys' socks. And I'm like, well, I don't even need to go. My house smells like that. I know that smell exactly. I don't need to go see the corpse plant. I know exactly what that smells like. Then junior high gym. Woo! This is just getting better and better. Followed by the full-on smell of rotten flesh, moving to a rotten corpse smell that's so thick and heavy, according to him, you could cut it with a knife. Now the one guy drove all the way from Texas. 48 hours of putrid blooming, 5,000 people came to see the corpse plant, to smell the corpse plant, to have their eyes water in the presence of the corpse plant. And as I read that article, first of all, people are weird. That's just that. First of all, that's what I understand from that. People are weird. They have too much time on their hands. Why would anyone pay to do that? Secondly, the Lord said, if we're not careful, this is what the church is going to be. We're going to become a tourist attraction. We're going to become an oddity. And we're going to repel people with the smell of our bitterness instead of drawing people with the smell of forgiveness. And God is saying He wants us to make sure that we are rooted in Him. The root determines fruit. And I don't want this to be what people are coming to the church for. Man, that church stinks. Let's go check it out. Did you hear the weird thing that church did the other day? Let's go check it out. I don't want that to be why I want people to come here because they're healed, because they're set free, because demons are running out the door, because you and I are rooted in the goodness of our God. And that's what I want people coming to this church for. And that's only going to happen because you and I put God first, because we make sure that the soil of our soul is in Him, that we aren't being planted in bitterness, but instead of in forgiveness. So one of the ways that we can do that, of course, is the God Rock. I can't delegate that to everyone else. The average person spends 29 minutes reading in a day, and 11 of them are on Instagram. So let's flip that. Let's put God first. I got a free journal for every single one of you guys that wants to commit with me to getting into God's Word every day. You just open it up and it shows you what to read for that given day. A little bit in the Old Testament, a little bit in the New Testament, and by the end of the year you'll have read through the New Testament twice and the Old Testament once. And our life groups are centered around these things as well. You can also get it on our app. Listen to it on your car drive. But let's go ahead and make sure that if we want to plow up the soil of our soul, it's become hardened. It starts with getting back to God's Word. The nutrients that gardener put around that tree. You want nutrients? Right here. And then, of course, our 21 days of prayer and fasting are are coming up quick. And what's so great is we're getting to do this with our denomination, which has thousands of churches all over the world. And they've also given us lots of resources. If fasting is like an intimidating thing to you, or you've tried it before and it's like, wow, that was really, really frustrating. They've got all kinds of resources for you to help you understand the heart behind fasting and help you each day as you're fasting. FoursquarePrayer.org. You can sign up there and we can do this together as a family. And I'm really curious to see where we're going to be in our relationship with God by the end of that 21 days. Again, it's not talking God into anything. It's simply positioning our hearts so that we are bearing fruit. Root determines fruit. So our community builder discussion question here is, who will you invite to join you for your 21 days to fast and pray on January 10th? Now, it's really good to not do it on your own. Believe me. If you try and do it on your own, it's so easy. You know, it's at night, kids are in bed, you're opening the fridge. Right? But if my wife is also fasting with me, she's just this built-in accountability. Like, John, we're not eating that for 21 days. That's right. I'm so glad. I'm glad you're here today. Keep me accountable. Thanks, baby. It's good. It's really good. My flesh hates it, but my spirit loves it. So God wants to give us a vision for fruitfulness in a land of barrenness. By prioritizing intentionality, what's first determines what's next. By prioritizing immediacy, your root determines your fruit. And finally, prioritizing intimacy. Surrender determines what you'll see. If we want a vision for fruitfulness, it starts with surrender. We talked about that last Sunday. Surrender is the place where we let God have control. We believe that the God who can see the beginning from the end actually knows what he's doing. And though we can't see around the next day, we can surrender right now to God that holds all our days in his hand. That's the beauty of the last part of this prophecy in Hosea chapter 10, verse 12. When we do the things that we just talked about, when we plow a fallow ground, when we put God first, look what he promises. Then he may come and shower righteousness upon you. That he may come and shower righteousness upon you. It's talking about him drawing near to you, right in your home, right in your family, right in your circumstances. It's talking about a shower of righteousness that's bringing refreshing and renewing everything that I'm talking about. This is not a call to doom. This is not some kind of heavy-handed, I'm going to hit you over the head so that you get it right this time. This is an invitation to intimacy. We can be as close to God as we want to be. And though I can present this to you, you and I must choose, and it starts with surrender. I want to close with a video from my friend, Pastor Alex Michelle. Many of you guys know he passed away tragically from an accident. He pastored a church in Honolulu. And he's been ministering to me. You know, he did for many years while I pastored in Honolulu, but he's been ministering to me. I've been listening to some of his messages. And he was known as the surfing pastor. And I'm so glad the video team captured one of his core life teachings, because this wasn't just something that he recorded, he lived this. And as he uses this metaphor of surrendering control to the wave, every surfer understands that's how it works. I want us to consider doing the same thing this year. Take a look at this.
There is nothing like the feeling of getting ready to paddle out on a day when the waves are absolutely perfect. Yet no matter how perfect it is, the ocean is powerful. It's really a force like no other. If you're not prepared, if you don't get the board ready, you don't wax up, and if we don't understand how small we are compared to the power of the waves, you can easily get hurt. I've been surfing almost my whole life. And when I was young, I didn't know that surfing was about letting go. I didn't realize how much of it was about surrendering to the wave in order to maximize the ride. And when I think about that, the times we are experiencing have a lot of similarities. We're experiencing kind of loss of control and surrender. But man, I really feel that if we learn to surrender to the ride, so to speak, to the time, to the plan, to the sovereignty of God, I really believe that what God has ahead of us individually, as a church, as a country, could be more amazing than anything we could imagine. You can't control the wave, honestly, just like you can't control life. There's lefts, there's rights. You know, it takes a lot of humility to let the wave actually take you. But when you do, it's a ride like you cannot believe. Let's talk about control. You know, it's a fallacy that leads to losing the very life it tries to seize. And if truth be told, when we really struggle with control, or when we're operating in control, we're trying to play God. You know, we want to be able to make everything work in the exact alignment of the way that makes us feel most comfortable. Control's about fear, and I get that. Like, we don't like things coming onto us or things controlling us, and we don't want to control us. And many of us wrestle with control because control was taken from us at some time in our life. There was a time when somebody forced their will on us. There was a time where somebody, took away what rightfully belonged to us. And, whether we're older or younger, when that happens, something digs inside of our, na'au, gets inside of our inner person, our spirit, that just says, I will never let anybody control me again. But the thing is, if we're going to understand surfing, one of the biggest things that is going to help you become the surfer, to be able to experience what you want to experience, is you got to recognize you're not in control. What we have to do is work in a partnership with a power that's bigger than ourselves. When I'm coming into that space, man, one of the things I realize is I can't control the wave. But if I can come to a place of, honestly, like a surrender, if I can come to the place where I let the wave actually push me, part of that surrendering of control and moving to trust is what we call a bottom turn. See, a bottom turn is when you take that speed and you come off the bottom of the wave and you pivot. And when you pivot that way, you begin to come back up into the part of the wave that's breaking. That movement of that bottom turn is a pivot, honestly, from being in control to being in surrender. And maybe if we kind of put that in an analogy, it's like, how good's your bottom turn? Can you bottom turn to trust? Can you bottom turn to trusting God? Can you come up into the space where it's, God, help me to not try to seize control, but help me to work in the flow of what your Holy Spirit is doing, man. And when you get into that space and you realize, man, God, I'm not in control, you're in control, but I'm partnering with your power, I'm partnering with your way, man, the things that you can begin to do because you've surrendered that control, man, you begin to enter into really a riding out of life like you can't believe. The places you'll go, the things that you'll be able to do on the wave, the excitement. I can't express the adrenaline, building of power, just like coming down and getting all that speed. Hit it as hard as you can. And when you do, and all that power releases, the water releases, all that different types of stuff, you're just like, you know what I mean? It's like dirty. Oh my gosh, And in that same way, man, when we're working in that work of the Spirit, as some of you know, and you're going, and you pivot out of control and you move into surrender and you step into that thing that God really wants you to do, and it just feels like that, wow, man, I feel your power, God, I feel the release, man, I feel like I'm doing exactly what I was meant to do. But it all starts with, how do we handle control? So how's your bottom turn, friends? How do you pivot from control to surrender, from fear to faith. And if you learn how to do that, you might get the ride of your life with God like you can't believe. Did you ever think that letting go could produce something so beautiful, so pure in your life? I've been searching for perfect waves all of my life, but now I realize that there's no greater joy than being able to ride these waves of life together. Being able to teach others, to paddle alongside the next generation, to show them the power of letting go. There are so many parallels between surfing and life, and together we can experience the power and the blessing of letting go.
Now you guys know why I miss him so much. And I'd like to end our first service of 2022 with what Pastor Alex was just challenging us to, which is a place of surrender, of letting go of everything that is in our hands. It's been entrusted to us. And so if you're physically able, if not, just stay seated where you're at, but if you're physically able, I would love to invite you to kneel and turn your seat into an altar. And we're just going to do a closing prayer here and bring him before the Lord. Everything that's been entrusted to us. So God, the beginning of a brand new year, we just bring it to you. Our 5%. Our relationship with you first and foremost. Those in our lives that you've given us the privilege of caring for. Our occupation, our vocation. The care for this temple that houses your Holy Spirit. The plans that we have. The way that we use our time in both work and play. God, we give it all back to you. And we just ask, God, that you would give us a vision for fruitfulness in a land of barrenness. God, in those places where we have grown weary, those places where our love has grown calculated and cold, we just invite you into those places where our ground has become hardened. Or maybe we've been allowed the root of bitterness to grow. And God, we step into the freedom of forgiveness because you've forgiven us. We're not going to carry into this year all that we've been holding on to from the last year. We're going to freely surrender it to you. Just like Alex was saying, God, there's such a freedom and a liberty that comes from surrendering control to the one who's actually in control. So God, we commit this year into your hands, afresh and anew. We set our hearts, God, to seek you every day that there's breath in our lungs, to putting you first in every area of our lives. Because as long as there's breath in our lungs, it means you're not done. And we can't wait to be a part of what it is you're about to do. In the name of Jesus. And everybody said? Amen. Amen.